my hand!
There was a bug.
Okay, so swat it with your hand. Those
Okay,
things hurt.
I'm sorry.
Ow!
I'm sorry, there was another bug.
The film begins at a summer camp known as Camp Pineway, where the camp owners, Gene and Kathy, are seen relaxing by the lake. The atmosphere appears idyllic until they discover they have run out of beer. A lesson often emphasized in horror films is to never venture back alone for supplies.
What happened to the music?
Ignoring this unwritten rule, Kathy returns with the beer only to be confronted with a horrifying scene. A guitar is lodged in Jason's mouth. Panicked, she flees and locks herself inside her car. However, instead of starting the engine, she freezes in terror as the killer is already in the vehicle. Without uttering a word, he thrusts a knife through the seat, killing her instantly. The assailant dons a devil mask, symbolizing a connection to hell. This summer camp transforms into a nightmarish experience. The camp officially opens in 2 days for the arrival of the children, but tomorrow marks the arrival of the counselors, who are about to face their own terrifying ordeal. On the following day, 11 counselors arrive, all former campers now grown up and prepared to lead. Their names include Jason, Mike, Claire, Shannon, Ezra, Miley, Noel, Demi, Ari, Bobby, and Chris. Among them, Jason is the eldest at 24 years old. Despite his age, he returns to the camp annually, drawing mockery from others. Even his mother dropped him off while others arrived independently. Last year, the teasing affected him deeply, prompting him to vow never to return. However, he finds himself back again, possibly because John and Kathy invited him or perhaps due to a need for an excuse. The reality is that Jason struggles to plan for the future and remains fixated on past camp experiences, lacking meaningful connections or friendships. Even Claire, his ex-girlfriend, does not engage with him. What was once an endearing aspect of his personality has now become a source of sadness as he feels left behind while others have moved on. Among the group, Demi stands out as a popular social media influencer who immediately enlists Jason as her assistant for her vlog before discarding him once she has what she needs. Meanwhile, Ari, an aspiring screenwriter, shares his script with Shannon until they are interrupted by Bobby and Chris, two affluent boys. There is evident mutual attraction between Shannon and Chris, though neither acknowledges it. Chris and Bobby share a unique bond as well. Bobby's former stepfather is now Chris's stepfather, which creates tension over shared ownership of the car they drove. As Jason attempts to socialize with the group, he is met with repetitive questions about his return to the camp. He laughs it off but internally feels the sting of rejection. When he encounters Claire, she casually mentions that she had a new boyfriend but they broke up 3 weeks ago. This was her sole reason for coming back to camp. Jason contemplates sharing something significant from his life but realizes there is nothing noteworthy to disclose since he feels stagnant. Later, Jason visits John and Kathy's office only to find it empty except for a note stating emergency. We'll be back by tomorrow morning. Please watch over the camp. Reading this note brings a smile to his face as he feels a sense of importance for the first time. He mistakenly believes he is now in charge without realizing the impending danger. In an effort to impress his peers by sharing his thoughts, Jason finds little interest from them as they gradually disengage and walk away. Nevertheless, he diligently collects everyone's phones in accordance with camp rules. After his speech, the group begins to settle into their routines. He takes Claire for archery lessons and mentions that John and Kathy had specifically invited him. However, their absence leads him to believe it is a test of his capability to manage the camp independently. Claire half-jokingly agrees but offers little further commentary. Meanwhile, other pairs form relationships around them. Bobby struggles to connect with Demi, who is already in a relationship with Mike. Believing that the woman he was interested in was vegan, he thought that by pretending to adopt a vegan lifestyle himself, she might be more inclined to engage with him. Unfortunately, this strategy proved to be a complete failure. Additionally, we learn that Ari suffers from a nut allergy, which causes him anxiety if he is around anyone consuming nuts. Returning to the unfolding events, that evening, Demi was alone in her cabin when the killer approached her from behind and murdered her, leaving only blood splatters as evidence of the crime. Meanwhile, Miley was in the kitchen on the verge of breaking her vegan diet to eat a meat burger when the killer appeared and decapitated her in a grotesque act of violence. Mike, hearing the disturbance, rushed in but was swiftly overpowered by the killer as well. Shortly thereafter, Jason, who had a tendency to enter others' cabins unannounced, entered Demi's cabin and discovered her lifeless body on the bed. He screamed in horror and ran to inform the others that Demi was dead. However, they dismissed his claims as a prank. In desperation, he attempted to call the police, only to find that all the phones were missing. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Eventually, the others joined Jason in Demi's cabin, but they found no body present. The bed was soaked in blood, compelling them to take his warning seriously. In a state of panic, they rushed towards their vehicles, only to find that none were operational, as the killer had sabotaged them. With no other options available, they fled to a nearby cabin and locked themselves inside. It was then that they realized both Miley and Mike were unaccounted for. Recognizing their need for assistance, they decided to use the landline phone as their only means of communication. Jason volunteered to go alone, but Claire insisted on accompanying him. They ultimately decided that Ari and Ezra would join them. The three of them made their way to the main hall where the phone was located, only to discover that it was inoperative. The phone line had been cut. To their horror, they also found Miley's severed head concealed inside the refrigerator. Terrified by this gruesome discovery, they scattered in different directions, with Jason being the only one who managed to return to the cabin. He quickly relayed what had transpired, and they began waiting for Ari and Ezra's return, though neither appeared. As anxiety mounted, Noel proposed using a Ouija board to reach out to spirits. Being particularly interested in the supernatural due to her goth persona, she was eager to try it out despite the group's uncertainty. Noel initiated contact with Ezra's spirit and first asked if he was deceased. The response was affirmative. When she inquired about his murderer, the reply was simply "I don't know." Before she could attempt to contact Demi's spirit, someone unexpectedly entered the room. It was Ezra, alive. Noel's ruse was exposed, but before she could react further, Bobby panicked and sprayed bear spray directly into Ezra's face, injuring him severely. Although Ezra had returned, questions remained about Ari's fate. The killer had bound Ari and, when he attempted to escape, stabbed him with a knife coated in peanut butter, triggering his allergy. Within moments, Ari succumbed to his fate. Back in the cabin, Ezra caused an uproar by accusing Jason of being the killer. He pointed out that Jason had collected everyone's phones and isolated himself from the group, suggesting jealousy might have driven him to eliminate them one by one. Believing Ezra's claims, the group restrained Jason and began interrogating him. However, with his mouth taped shut, he could not defend himself. Frustrated by his silence, everyone left for the kitchen to gather potential torture implements, leaving only Bobby behind in the cabin. Seizing the opportunity, Claire untied Jason and assisted him in escaping. She urged him to flee for his safety as she feared the group would resort to violence against him. Despite her pleas, Jason refused to abandon his friends. He felt compelled to save them from their dire situation. After progressing a bit further, they discovered the bodies of John and Kathy, shattering their hopes for assistance. Remaining in that location was no longer viable, yet Jason steadfastly refused to leave. He urged Claire to move ahead while he made the decision to return, resolute in his intention to rescue the others. As everyone dispersed in search of their phones, they acknowledged that splitting up was essential. Unfortunately, this decision provided the killer with an opportunity. Exploiting the ensuing chaos, he murdered Noel. However, his actions did not cease there. After stabbing her, he prepared to crush her skull with a rock when, unexpectedly, another individual donning the same mask appeared. It then became clear that there were two killers rather than one. The second assailant, revealed to be Mike, struck Noel's head with a rock. The identities of the two killers, Demi and Mike, were now fully exposed. They had orchestrated the entire scheme in pursuit of fame, intending to create the illusion that only two individuals survived the massacre, believing this would garner them public attention and transform them into heroes with millions of followers. Chris entered a room and was taken aback to witness them together. He froze in shock at their survival. The others shared his surprise. However, rather than harboring suspicion, they felt relief, convinced that Jason remained the true killer. Upon hearing this, Demi and Mike devised a new strategy. They would frame Jason for the murders, eliminate him, and subsequently take out the remaining survivors to ensure that the fame was exclusively theirs. Following their plan, they recorded a video with the others, falsely claiming that Jason had gone insane and intended to kill them. Armed with this fabricated evidence, they were poised to act. As soon as Jason returned to camp, Mike incapacitated him, reigniting the killing spree. The first victim was Ezra. The killer shattered his leg before delivering a fatal blow with an axe to his head, marking it as the film's fifth and most brutal murder. After Ezra's demise, Chris became the next target. In a courageous act, Bobby risked his life to divert the killer's attention away from Chris. However, it was Claire, who had come to rescue Jason, that ultimately saved Bobby just in time. Through these events, they came to realize that Mike and Demi were the true perpetrators. Mike stood directly before them while Demi was preoccupied with framing Jason. Determined to save him, Claire rushed to Jason's side. In her absence, Mike seized Bobby once more, leading to a fierce struggle that even ignited the cabin in flames. Nevertheless, Bobby managed to stab Mike in the neck, effectively removing him from the equation. The fame Mike had envisioned would never be realized. Meanwhile, Demi attempted to persuade Jason that he could achieve greater fame than she could offer. However, Jason dismissed her proposition. At that moment, Claire emerged wielding a bow and arrow. In a desperate attempt, Demi lunged at Jason with a knife, but Jason's archery training enabled him to evade her attack. Claire successfully shot an arrow directly into Demi's eye. However, Demi did not succumb instantly. In her final moments, she kicked out, driving the arrow deeper into her skull and ultimately ending her life. With the cabin still ablaze, Jason rushed in to rescue Bobby from the flames. He would never forget who the real killers were. At this juncture, Chris and Shannon arrived, their fates now intertwined with those of the survivors. The bond between Jason and Claire deepened as the film reached its intense conclusion, leaving viewers questioning how they would escape the horrors they had just endured. And that concludes today's recap. If you appreciated the unexpected twists and turns, please remember to like and subscribe for more chilling recaps. I welcome your thoughts in the comments. Who did you believe the killer was? Until next time, stay tuned and stay scared.